Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready to head out to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. A couple of 1-2 teams trying to rebound from disappointing losses. Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Raiders, talking about Deshaun Watson and defending him.
I'm not going to judge on how he's played, but I've seen some really good throws last week out there on the perimeter, both to Amari Cooper. The deep ball's there. Obviously, the ability to scramble, to run, to extend the plays, that's something we're going to have to work on again this week. No different than against like a Lamar Jackson type, a guy that can move in the pocket. But listen, he's played a lot of football, and when he's on, he's on. You saw that in Jacksonville. And then late in the game, obviously, against the Cowboys, you know, when they needed to come back and he was moving the ball and moving the chain. So he's somebody that's a threat. You got to respect in the National Football League that at any given moment he can make plays.
And we are going to start with the Las Vegas Raiders perspective of things. We welcome in Vincent Bonsior as the Raiders reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Vincent, I know you guys are coming off a loss to the Panthers. What happened in that one?
That's a really good question. And by the way, the Cleveland Browns, their first appearance in Las Vegas, we've been counting down the teams that are making their first appearances. The Carolina Panthers last week, and they thoroughly enjoyed their visit to Las Vegas, by the way. We'll see if the Cleveland Browns follow suit. But, you know, this is such a this Raiders team, this iteration of this, you know, this franchise, is just, there's so much of an unknown. And I guess you can kind of use that to describe the Cleveland Browns as well, because I don't think on a week-to-week basis, based on the Raiders' track record under Antonio Pierce, this offense, this quarterback, I don't know that we have like a firm handle on who these Raiders truly are. So while Sunday was thoroughly surprising on some levels, maybe not so much when you really think about it. Therefore, looking ahead to Sunday, you're wondering, okay, what Raiders team can we expect? And I literally asked Devontae Adams that question yesterday on Wednesday, and he's like, I don't have any expectations. I don't think he knows. And when your star player doesn't know exactly what the response is going to be, that's probably not good news. And so when you go back to Sunday against the Carolina Panthers to explain it, I think it's hard to explain it. They just didn't play a very good football team, and they're not good enough to not check off all the various boxes that this team does. I mean, every team has to check off a number of boxes to win in the NFL, but in particular, this Raiders team, which has question marks at quarterback along the offensive line. I don't know that they can compete unless they follow that very strict blueprint and check off every box that they have to, and they certainly didn't do that on Sunday. And wondering or expecting or asking if they're going to check off those boxes on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns, I don't think anyone really has an answer. We're going to have to wait and see until Sunday.
Yeah, that sounds like a mirror of the Browns. Now, the week before, you go into Baltimore and you beat the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. You mentioned the quarterback play. There was some talk that Antonio Pierce might move on from Gardner Minshew and go with Aiden O'Connell. He came out a couple days ago and said it's going to be Minshew. Could you see them switching in game if it's not going well?
Yeah, I could see that happening. I don't think that Antonio Pierce, wants anything to do with that. But, when you go back to training camp and really OTAs and minicamp, and this was an open competition between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And, for those of us that were there every single day, neither one of them really distinguished themselves. So this wasn't a situation where Gardner Minshew definitively won that job and was the clear-cut winner, no matter how much Antonio Pierce was asking somebody to step up and take the bull by the horns and make this an easy decision for him. None of that happened. So Gardner Minshew won the job, but in a way, it was almost by default because Aiden O'Connell, it was by a smidgen. Let's just say that he won it by a smidgen. So I've always felt like whoever was named the starter was going to then have to earn the trust of the team and earn an extended stay at the job by performing. And right now it's been very mediocre for Gardner Minshew. So to say that he's taken this job and run with it, I think would be completely false. So therefore, it goes back to the question of, is a quarterback change in the cards? Is that possible? And the answer is yes. I just don't know how long it'll be before they make that decision. But I'll say this: it can't go on much longer in terms of where this offense is and how it's performing, and it starts at quarterback. There's other components that aren't working as well, the offensive line being one of them. But at some point, if the Raiders fall into a hole or it's just not happening offensively, at what point do you go back to the guy that helped you win 5 of the last 9 games last year and give him a shot to see if he can hold on to it? So that's kind of where it is right now.
You have Devontae Adams. It doesn't seem like he's thrilled with how much he's getting the ball. Brock Bowers looks like he's a keeper there at tight end. How does this offense function if it's going to be successful? What does this offense need to do?
Yeah, that's the key to it all. Well, number one, they've got to get some extended drives going. I think they're averaging right around 60 plays offensively per game. That's not going to get it done, and that prevents them, from kind of getting into their bag and really being able to satisfy everybody. When you look at that, one thing about the Raiders, offensively at least, you look at the weapons that they have, and you're talking about Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, who looks to be a stellar young player. Zamir White, their running back, who led the league in rushing over the last 4 games of last year. Michael Mayer, who arguably the second best tight end behind Brock Bowers in college football over the last few years prior to him coming to the Raiders. They've got weapons. But in order to utilize those weapons, Trey Tucker as well, they have to extend drives so that Luke Getsy, the offensive play caller, and Gardner Minshew can start spreading the ball around. But there's been far too many 3-and-outs, far too many situations where they can't convert 3rd or 4th and longs and give up the ball, and therefore don't have enough plays to really spread the ball around the way they really want to. So for them to get to that point, it's going to start with execution on 1st and 2nd down, extending drives, being able to run 75 to 80 snaps in a game in order to make sure everyone gets their touches. Because if that happens, then this offense can be successful. But they just haven't been able to get to that point this year, and let alone last year. It was the same exact issue last year.
Browns fans are probably chuckling because that's a carbon copy of what has been happening offensively for the Browns. We've heard Max Crosby is a little banged up. How has he? I mean, he's a Myles Garrett type. As fans here will compare him, and he's in a comparison with the elite in the league. How has he been with that banged up leg?
Yeah, and he was. I think Antonio Pierce used the term 80% of Max Crosby is better than most players, and he definitely showed up on Sunday and played through it. But it was obvious that he wasn't healthy. He hasn't practiced yet this week, and we just got off the field here on Thursday, and he wasn't on the practice field. So what that means for his status on Sunday, I don't remember too often covering this team where Max Crosby wasn't out on the practice field in some form, whether it was limited or full, and he just hasn't even been able to make it out to the practice field. Saying all that, he's kind of a disciple of a Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant was notorious for playing through injuries, and Max has been notorious for playing through injuries. He played through 2 situations last year that literally required off-season surgeries. 2 different, not one, but 2 different injuries that he was dealing with last year that required surgery afterwards. So my money would be on him playing on Sunday, but to what extent and to what level, that remains to be seen, because it is a high ankle sprain. And I'm leaving a little bit of room open for the possibility that he just doesn't play, and the Raiders try to survive this week and buy some time in order to get Max Crosby as healthy as possible, because there's no question that defense needs Max Crosby, the high-end Max Crosby, for that defense to be successful. And maybe you cut a corner in one game in order to make that happen for more games down the road. But at the same time, they really can't afford to go down 1-3. 2-2, I think that they would, if you were talking about where would the Raiders want to be, aside from being 4-0, obviously, 2-2, I think they would have taken, given this schedule to start the season. So that's still possible for them and still out in front. By the way, we were just looking at the numbers today, and I know this sounds silly, but if the season were to end today, as bad as it's been for the Raiders, they'd be in the playoffs right now. That's because there's a lot of trouble spots in the AFC right now. You figure some teams are going to get it straightened out, but at the same time, it kind of tells you that definitely not time to panic, but falling into a 1-3 hole, boy, I'll tell you what, that would be kind of dire straits for the Raiders.
Yeah, the Browns are looking at the same thing. Before I let you go, when the Raiders are doing what they want to do defensively, what are they seeing? And I'm looking at it, and they blitz a lot, and the Browns had all kinds of trouble with blitzes against the Giants. Is that what the Raiders do with Antonio Pierce?
Yeah, and it's really Patrick Graham, their defensive coordinator, who's kind of the head and brains of all of that. And that's definitely what they like to do. The first thing that they want to do, and they quite honestly haven't done this very well, periodically maybe against the Chargers, but they want to stop the run and then make the other team one-dimensional, and then be able to rev up their pass rush, Max Crosby included in some of the blitz packages that they have. But what's kind of derailed that are a couple of things. Number one, they just haven't been able to stop the run. Last week, they got just run all over the field by a Carolina Panthers team that wasn't very good running the ball coming into the game. But they had their way with the Raiders. So that's been a problem. And then number two, they lost Malcolm Kuntz, who had emerged last year as a really viable pass rusher and somebody that they could rely on opposite Max Crosby. He's down for the season with a knee injury, and they've not really had much success replacing him. And it's not like you could go out and magically conjure up a pass rusher that good to fill that role. They're hoping that Tyree Wilson, the 7th pick overall in 2022, will eventually, or 2023, will eventually get it together. But he's been kind of more of an enigma than somebody that they can rely on. So because that doesn't happen, that pass rush kind of gets negated a little bit, or certainly neutralized a little bit, and then they become a team that we don't even recognize, because that is what this defense is really predicated on: getting, stopping the run, getting pass rush pressure, creating turnovers on the back end. But they haven't been able to get to that, and it starts with some key injuries and not being able to stop the run. And they've lost Malcolm Kuntz for the season. They've lost Marcus Epps for the season. They're down Divine Diablo, their starting linebacker. Max Crosby, we'll see what his status is for Sunday's game. But you're talking about 4 starters already that may not be on the field on Sunday. And I know that Browns fans are going through it themselves with injuries, so they don't want to hear anything about that. But that's kind of the reality of the situation for the Raiders right now.
Yeah, a couple of teams that desperately need a win to get back to 500 at 2-2. Vincent Bonsigner, I appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
You got it, absolutely. And hopefully if you're coming out to Las Vegas, enjoy your stay. It's quite the show out here, regardless of sometimes of what happens on the field. But it's a fun place to come watch an NFL football game.
Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much. Once again,
you got it.
Once again, that was Vincent Bonsigner. He is Raiders beat reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We're step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
The biggest problem with our offense is that we changed our offense to suit supposed strengths of Watson. But Watson has proven that he can't run any kind of NFL offense at this point, and we're tied to this idiot for the next 2 years. The only change they can make is get rid of Dorsey and reinstall Stefanski's offense. Knowing that Watson couldn't run either one, maybe we could get Joe Flacco and bench Watson. We're going to pay him anyway, but why have him lose games for us? This was the worst mistake that our front office ever made, was to give Watson this stupid contract, which has set the franchise back 5 years, if not longer. I still say draft Quinn Ewers, have him sit behind Flacco for a year, and then put him in there. He's the true future, or someone. Just because he's a rookie doesn't mean you have to play him right away. But we need to do something. This is ridiculous. You're throwing away people's careers here, and you're losing your fan interest. Anyways, thank you. Goodbye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, the Barking Browns podcast. It is a nasty place when the offense looks like it has. I get the Joe Flacco stuff, guys. Joe Flacco did not walk bare feet uphill in the snow both ways to school. He did play better than Deshaun Watson is. Watson's got to play better. Drafting quarterbacks, we've gone through that. We kicked it when we had the number 1 overall pick with John Dorsey. So,
yeah, I don't know if it's the biggest issue, but it's probably the most disheartening issue, is that you changed everything around in the offseason to cater to your quarterback, and it still looks like a square peg in a round hole scenario. So I do agree with the caller there. It definitely feels disheartening. And he says you don't feel like he can run any NFL offense. For me, I think the coaching staff, they're just hoping they throw enough reps at it that eventually something clicks and you start seeing some continuity and you start to be able to build on things. But right now, he's right? There's very basic concepts that aren't being executed. So I get where he's coming from, where how it feels. But in regards to drafting a quarterback, like, you do have a first-round pick this year. But I don't think the pie in the sky of getting one of these top quarterbacks is still going to be there. For as disparaging as this feels right now, you're still going to win too many games to be in that running for a top 5 pick, top 10 pick, that you can land one of those guys. But you still absolutely need to do your homework on all the quarterbacks, the Carson Becks, Cam Wards, Quinn Ewers. But I think more than likely you're probably going to be targeting an offensive tackle based on where you'll be drafting.
yeah, or a wide receiver, or you got some. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you don't need a quarterback, but I'm with you. I don't know that that's going to be in the cards, because I'm with you. I think they'll win too much to get a first 5 picks in the draft. Although, when you look at some of the numbers, as we look at this one, Browns dead last in converting third downs, 18.6%. Penalties do play a factor without question, as they keep getting behind the sticks and into third and longs. Currently, the average distance on third downs is almost 9.5 yards. That is a recipe to have a horrible offense and lose a lot of football games.
Yeah, I said it when I was on here a couple weeks ago. Just 3rd and 8 feels like a death sentence. When you're constantly seeing 3rd and 9s, over the course of a game, you might pick up 1 or 2 of those, but more than likely it's a 3 and out in your punting scenario. Keep in mind, if you're facing a team in the Raiders this week, they're 29th against the run. I implore the coaching staff to stick with the run on early downs, even if you only get 2 on first down and 3 on second down. 3rd and 5 is a much better place to live than 3rd and 9.4. You can't live there. The way this offense is executing, the way the quarterback's not seeing the reads properly or executing them when they're there, you cannot live in that world. So you got to stay out of those obvious down and distances, especially with the way the offensive line's unable to protect or identify stunts and blitzes. And then you got a quarterback who's not finding answers. It's just a recipe for disaster. So you got to stay out of those at all costs.
So this is also interesting. Deshaun Watson and the Browns to improve. Answer is simple, but it's not easy. Get the ball out quicker. Average time to throw for Watson, 2022, 3.35, 4th highest. 2023, 3.14, 4th highest. This year, 2.99, eighth highest. When he's throwing quickly, so less than 2.5 seconds in 2024, hitting 60% or 66% of his throws, 359 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9 sacks. And again, Casey, it's one of the things I thought he was good at, when he was in Houston, was processing. We're not seeing that right now.
No, there's no marriage of processing with footwork. He gets the back of his drops. There's several hitches, and there's a hesitation to leave the pocket at times, or sometimes he'll bail when it's a clean pocket. There's no continuity back there. He's not seeing the field correctly. There's a lot of issues, and like I said, I think the only thing that their coaching staff is just banking on is if they throw enough reps at it, that he'll break through that. But that's a waiting game, and when you have the season on the line, it feels like you're punting with each time you go out there and you're running an inefficient offense. That's the highest paid in the league on top of everything else. So you expect to see results, but we're talking about a team who can't surpass 18 points yet. There's definitely a sticking point, and I don't know how much longer they can be this inept on offense and still just keep trying to bang their heads in the wall, trying the same thing before they're forced to go another route.
So offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey asked about the struggles of the offense.
The big thing for us is just playing decisive, and making sure that we're doing a great job with him, understanding exactly what, why things are in, what the thought process is. All right, if this happens, here's what we got, and here are our outlets. And we talk a lot about having just a really good OST thought process. So in a situation, hey, things break down or things aren't there, just outlet, scramble, throw away, in our minds. So we want to continue to harp on those things, continue to do whatever we can to make sure that we're keeping them clean. And to Kevin's point, it takes all 11 to do that.
Yeah, Casey, I'm leaning towards the simplify and get the ball out.
Yeah. I don't know how much more simpler they can make it. It's pretty simple as is. I think the best thing that they could do to give themselves a head start is get to the line of scrimmage early, get as many pre-snap indicators as possible so you can come up with those answers ahead of time, because like you said, he's not really processing. So to figure it out why there's live bullets really isn't working. So get to the line of scrimmage, get your indications, and come up with your plan. Get your reads in order and know where your hot route's going to be. Try to identify blitzes so you know where to throw the ball if those occur. Right now, it feels like it's all just happening in the moment, and it's just jointed and clunky, and then you get the result that we're seeing on Sundays.
All right, this was, we're looking for good news. This would qualify as good news. David Njoku out on the football field, back limited practice, but again, making progress with that high ankle sprain that's kept him out since the opener against the Cowboys. Some other news, Garrett did return. Myles Garrett returned to practice. Jerome Ford also along with Njoku. Now the flip side, Jack Conklin hamstring, Pierre Strong hamstring, Jordan Hicks ribs and elbow, Jedrick Wills knee remain out, Dalvin Tomlinson a new absence to that. So team's banged up, but you know what? The train keeps rolling with the season. Got to find a way to win.
Yeah, I believe Dalvin Tomlinson got a Veterans Day off last week. Let's just hope and pray that's what this is, because he's such a vital part of how stout they can be up front. If he's not in there, their run game suffers greatly. But it's a sight for sore eyes to see David Njoku back. And he didn't look labored out there. Obviously, he's not moving full speed, but he's close. Even if he doesn't go this week, you know that he's close. You know that he wants to be out there with his guys. So I'm hoping he's able to give it a go this week. But if not, you see that's coming on the other side. And shout outs to Myles Garrett. I mean, 3 injury designations. And on the list, it says foot. It's actually feet. Both his feet are hurt, Achilles and a thigh, and he's out there gutting it out, and he's going to give it a go Sunday. To see him out there today, that's good. The tackle situation, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Maybe they'll give it a go. Maybe you'll see him tomorrow on the Friday practice, go through walkthrough, and the coaches will think that's good enough to put them out there. But just based on the way things have been trending at that position, it's just going to be a mess until they're all the way healthy, which who knows if we get there.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones. Diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yes, this is Daryl from Dixon. I called in a week or two ago and I suggested that maybe we should give Deshaun Watson the rookie treatment, simplify his reads and let him do the easier things. Just make the play happen, keep plays alive, not try to get in over his head. This offense is supposed to be designed around what he does good. Well, right now, he's not doing anything good. Yeah, the line's beat up, but maybe we need to roll him out. Maybe we need to go back and do some play action. We got to make it simple. We got to keep more people in the block for him, but he's not what he was. And we got to get him rolling somehow, and we're going to have to simplify that. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Casey, we mentioned the simplifying thing. I like the rollout idea. I had thought of that earlier. It cuts the... It limits your decisions. And start there.
Yeah, and I think you should look back to last weekend. You're talking about RPO, slant to flat reads. That's just a half side of the field, and it's still not being executed. Things are there, they're just not being executed. It's a matter of pulling the trigger and trusting in your eyes, and it's still not happening. I like the idea of going heavy personnel. And until things start clicking, you can bog down. You can do some things to at least give you more protection. But when we're talking about Deshaun Watson, everyone reverts back to what he was in Houston. In Houston, his line wasn't good. He was still making things happen. It's not there. I don't know how long they're willing to wait on that to return before they have to change the offense altogether. And after everything they've invested this offseason to bring in a new offensive scheme and a new offensive philosophy, it feels weird to just throw it away this early. But it's clearly not working. There's some major disconnect, and until they can figure that out, and I'm sure they're seeing the same things that we're seeing. The coaches are seeing the same things we're seeing on the film, on the all 22. There are answers to be had that is not being executed, and it's not all 100% on the quarterback. The offense as a whole is playing bad. There's no other way around it. But at the end of the day, the trigger man is going to be the most focal point and the thing that you could change the easiest to get a different result. So you got 3 games here on the road. He's got to show that he can put some things together and you can start to build upon that offense, because if he's still struggling in this way after 3 games, you can't send that product back to Cleveland.
Yeah, and the other thing is, once you make that move to Jameis Winston, or you're not going back.
Yep.
You're not going back.
That toothpaste doesn't go back in the tube.
Nope. All right, so this will let you know how bad it is. Bottom 5 offenses in passing yards per play through week 3. Jaguars 28th, Titans 29th, Bears at just 4 yards per play 30th. Patriots and Browns, worst in the NFL. A collective record of those bottom 5, 3-12. So when people ask, is it really that bad? Yeah, it is.
That is a list you want to avoid being on at all costs. That is bleak, and it's not where we expect it to be. The weight of expectations. When we were coming into the season, I thought the offense was going to be a work in progress, and the defense was going to have to do the heavy lifting. I did not anticipate it being near this inept, this inefficient. It's hard to watch. I honestly, this offense is giving you basically 2 drives a game, and the rest of it's just 3 and outs. And for me, that's DTR's first start against Pittsburgh. That's kind of what I saw in that game. Is he would look good for a drive, and then there'd be long stretches of nothing. And you expect that from a rookie quarterback. You kind of expect that inefficiency, but this is a veteran-laden team. So to go out there and kind of just be able to not put things together. And at the end of the day, this defense is the strength of the team. But when you fail to control the ball at any level and are constantly punting it back, and you're not keeping them on the sidelines, giving them rest, eventually that dam breaks. So it's imperative that they start to play some cohesive football and help their defense out. Even if it doesn't result in points, you have to string together some first downs just to give them a breather. And right now, it's lopsided as can be.
So this is also something that when you look ahead, this is what's coming. Browns have struggled with the blitz. Teams have noticed. Cleveland is the 4th most blitzed team in the NFL. Their next opponent, the Ravens, have called the 5th most blitzes in 2024. They may be up to number 1 after this week, because when you struggle like the Browns did picking up the blitz, you can rest assured until you make people pay, you're going to see it every week.
That's the part that concerns me most about this offensive line, because your struggles at tackle you can easily identify. It's you're injured, you got backups, and you got guys returning from injury. Maybe they're not quite ready, but the inability, especially in the interior, to recognize stunts and blitzes. And this is a veteran team. This isn't stuff that they're new to. They're just not seeing it. And then when you have a quarterback who doesn't find answers, best believe this is a copycat league. Everyone has that tape. You're going to keep seeing that until you start to find answers. And this it's going to start this week. Like they're fifth in blitzes going into this game. Like you said, it's going to be a dosage until they stop it. That's all they're going to see. It's just blitzes and stunts.
Well, the Giants blitzed twice as much as they normally do because they saw something that the Cowboys did. So that get ready. Figure out a way to, whatever it is, screens, whatever you need to do, you're going to see plenty of blitzes. This is one of those things, one of the reasons why you alluded to it. Offensive tackles with the highest pressure rates allowed through 3 weeks, minimum of 50 pass block snaps. You see, you got a guy from the Titans, a guy from the Patriots, a guy from the Jaguars. Those are all the teams that are struggling to throw the football. Then down at 6, James Hudson, 10.3%. And again, I'm not trying to beat up on James Hudson. He's not a left tackle, but he has struggled mightily, and now he's banged up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm disparaging him every time I talk about him, but he's not meant to be a starter. This isn't the role he was envisioned for. You came into the offseason, they plan on having 3 NFL starting caliber tackles on this team, and through injury, you really don't have any. DeWand is now hobbled. He was the only one you had, and then with, you got Wills. I don't know where he stands. The effort wasn't there last week, but I think that's something we can point to throughout his career that he's kind of done. So I don't know how much that was injury related or just rust or just who he is. And then so you have Hudson out there for a lion's share of the snaps, and he's just not a starting caliber tackle, left or right. He's a depth piece, and you need those depth pieces. He's the perfect candidate to come in if you want to go heavy and be that extra guy. But when he's having to anchor and deal with these guys coming off the edge and running the hoop, that's just not his skill set. Like, I honestly feel like he should be a guard. That's just where you're at now with injuries, and you have James Hudson out there, so you have to mitigate that in any way you can.
Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast. And I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is Tim from Cleveland. I know people are saying it's Deshaun, people are saying it's the O-line, people are saying this, people are saying that. Honestly, this team hasn't looked this bad since 2010, 2011, and it's very unsettling and scary as a lifelong Browns fan. So hopefully they get it together and they are slow starters like Deshaun keeps insisting. Thanks. Have a good one.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Casey, I can't argue with any of that. It looks disjointed. The other thing is, we talked about the defense. They gave up 2 drives that were long. That surprised me. And it was in the first half. Those were critical drives where you needed to get off the field and you couldn't.
Yeah, I would say 2016 and 17 would like a word with you about how bad they look. But yeah, that's the one thing that I was kind of banking on. Every year is its own individual thing, but when you have so much continuity between personnel, coaching staff, front office, you want to think that certain things carry over. And one of the things I thought we could just pocket was this team's going to play well at home, especially the defense. And it just hasn't been the case. They haven't had that same fire and been able to put up that same kind of fight. And so that is disheartening, because you want to think that you're building something and you're going to build upon that, because we're all worried about, well, are they going to be able to take that effort and improve it on the road, because we know what they can do at home. That's a true home field advantage, and it's been anything but. So it feels almost like you're starting over from scratch. I will point out about the slow start. The last team to start off the season 0-3 and make the playoffs was Deshaun's 2018 Houston Texans. He has always been a slow starter. This appears to be much more than that to me. This isn't just a slow start. This is a failure to start. So I don't think it falls in that category. But I get why the caller is disheartened. I mean, I think we all are at this point.
Yeah, there hasn't been much that you could say, all right, this is what we expected. Yeah, this is a roster that should be good, and really they haven't been. I know you wrote an article, 3 matchups the Browns must exploit against the Raiders. Zadarius Smith versus Thayer Munford or DJ Glaze. So D-line against Raiders O-line. Grant Delpit against Brock Bowers, really good rookie tight end for the Raiders. And Amari Cooper versus Jacorian Bennett. So take us through those, why I think they're important.
Well, for one, if there was ever a week for someone on the defensive line to take some of the onus off Myles Garrett battling 3 injuries, this would be the week. And you got Zadarius going up against Thayer Munford if he even plays. He got injured on the second play of the game last week and had to come out. But he's been a below-average tackle. Average at pass protection, but way below in run blocking. And then he was replaced by a rookie, DJ Glaze from Maryland. So if he can't go, that's who Zadarius is going to line up against. A rookie making his first NFL start. You have to dominate that matchup. If there was ever a week that Myles needed someone else, this is it. So for me, that is an imperative matchup right there. And when you look at the Raiders' offense and the way that the style of play of their quarterback, taking away the intermediate stuff is the easiest way to get to Gardner Minshew, because he's risk adverse. It really doesn't take too many deep shots. And Brock Bowers is off to a phenomenal start. And out of all the skill positions in the NFL, tight end usually has the steepest learning curve. You see rookie receivers and running backs come in frequently and have their way. It's very rare that a tight end does. And right now he's on pace to have the greatest rookie season out of a tight end from a receptions and yards perspective. He only needs 5 receptions and 46 yards to be on the best pace after 4 games. So you see where they can limit him. And the Raiders aren't good at running the football. That's just point blank. They're dead last in the league. So if you could ever spare Grant Delpit from the run game, this would be the week, and use him to kind of erase Bowers and just take away one thing as much as possible from Gardner Minshew and try to force him to take more chances with the football. Based on your secondary, I think you have success there. And then obviously, after 2 weeks of despair and thinking that it might be over for the man, water found its level, and Amari Cooper is amazing again. I think that you need to keep building on that. If Deshaun's going to get his confidence up and be able to take shots with any player, it's going to be Amari Cooper. You saw it on that turkey hole shot for the first play of the game where they scored that 24-yard touchdown. You've seen it again in the 2nd and 9 in the 4th quarter. He feels confident enough to take risks with Amari Cooper. And if you look at the Raiders secondary, Jacorian Bennett's a second-year corner out of Maryland. He's playing decent football. But usually when Amari winds up on the left side out wide, that's who he's going to be facing off against. There are other corners, Jack Jones, who's a very volatile corner. He'll give up receptions and even touchdowns, but he's in his 3rd year. In his first 2 years in the league, he's had 4 interceptions. He's taken 3 back for touchdowns. This offense isn't operating at a level where I think you need to even risk with that. I don't, obviously if there's wide open stuff, but I'm not taking chances over with a guy who could take it to the house, especially on the road. That seems to be something that would happen to the Browns. So for me, it's anytime you can get Amari over on Jacorian Bennett, you need to take those shots.
So what do they do to get the run game going? I mean, and I know there's reasons, but it seemed like they didn't even try to run the football in the first half last week.
Yeah, consistency, just sticking with it. I don't know why they keep getting out of these situations. You're not throwing it in an efficient clip, so it makes no sense, because then you get caught in those 3rd and 9s, and you might as well start punting on 3rd down at that point, because only bad things are going to happen when you're trying to force it beyond the sticks. So it's about sticking with it. And I don't get the erratic use of Deonta Foreman. For me, it's the first week he's on the field for 2 snaps, doesn't get a single rush. Second week, you kind of seen what it needed to be. Him as the lead back, him as the power, the thunder, and then you use Jerome Ford as the lightning. That change of pace back, that dynamic seemed to work pretty well. And then in week 3, they went right away from it. So for me, it's, you're facing a Raider team that's 29th in the league in rush defense. You have to stick with the run on early downs and give yourself a chance to be efficient on third downs. Because if not, we're just going to be banging our heads in the wall trying the same thing over and over again.
Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. The Orange and Brown Report. He is also the co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast and the Barking Browns podcast. We're on the stub side. Take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby tins. $10 each. 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Steve Lannon. I feel with the new offense that should have been tested out by the starters in the preseason. I feel like the last 3 games have been preseason games trying to change things to the new system, and it's just something that should have been done in the preseason. Still love the show. Take care.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, when you get off to this kind of start, I think everything's on the table, including question, why didn't you play starters? What are you doing? Practices in training camp? Everything. When you start like this team has, you got to look at what you're doing leading up to the beginning of the season. Have to.
There's absolutely a fair question to bring up, but there are, some outliers to that. None of the offensive tackles were available. Of course, we're talking about Wills, Conklin, even DeJuan Jones. Those guys really weren't available to play in the preseason. You're not going to play Joel Bitonio in the preseason. You're most likely not going to play Wyatt Teller in the preseason. If you're not going to play any of those guys, it makes it difficult to play your quarterback, obviously. Look, but you do have to absolutely go back to basically, your spring work and your OTAs and everything and the way you handled training camp. And maybe, they went to West Virginia last year and it led to a good season. Maybe they went to West Virginia this year and probably did it because, people like to continue things that work for them. But maybe that wasn't necessarily the case and it didn't work out this year. It's a fair question to say. I think this team is a lot more banged up. And I think that maybe we were privy to the knowledge of how banged up they were. To talk about it, we still have not seen Jack Conklin. Jedrick Wills played for a hot minute. DeJuan Jones, even though he's still practicing, he's back. He's been in and out of the lineup. This team just kind of needs some continuity. They kind of need just some guys that are going to go out there week in, week out. 1 week it's Amari Cooper, 1 week it's Jerry Jeudy, 1 week it's Elijah Moore. You're going to try to work David Njoku back here into the fold. You can't really get a running game going. Look, there's a million questions that you can ask about what's going on here right now, but I think if you want to get to the juxt of it, everybody will agree that on the offensive side of the ball right now, essentially nothing is working for this team.
Yeah. What do they need to do? How do you it looks disjointed. It doesn't seem like the reads aren't really the lack of reads tells me they're just not understanding. They don't understand the concepts is what it seems like.
There's certainly something to that as well. For me, I'm going to go back from what really worked for this team last year. When they brought Joe Flacco in, they just started throwing the ball vertically. And they threw it vertically more than we have ever seen a Kevin Stefanski offense do. And yes, it led to some interceptions at times. But you want to know what it did? It opened up the running game where you didn't have Nick Chubb. It made things a little easier for Jerome Ford. There was more running room. It certainly made for David Njoku to have the best year of his career because there just wasn't that much congestion within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and he was able to cook defenders with the abilities that he has. And I know the pass pro is not there, but you want to know what? You hit a big one, Amari Cooper, first play last week. You hit another big one, Amari Cooper, later. You need to start throwing the ball vertical. I mean, what are you paying all these wide receivers for if when you look and then by the time you get to the point where Deshaun Watson's ready to release the ball, every receiver is within 5 to 8 yards of the line of scrimmage? I mean, I don't know what you're paying all these guys for. You could pay league minimum and have the same type of guys run these routes. You're paying big money to Amari Cooper. You're paying big money to Jerry Jeudy because you think these guys are explosive vertical threats. Well, let's try doing that. And, for everybody that's going to say, oh, well, they're not blocking anyway. Well, then give it a shot. Really give it a shot. Because at least if it's going to be a turnover, we've seen the fumbles. Obviously, we saw 2 interceptions against the Dallas Cowboys. At least this way, maybe it'll be a 40-yard interception as opposed to a turnover that's giving the ball, to the opponent at midfield or even worse in Browns territory.
So this is kind of interesting as well. So it's the percentage of Watson's production this season when he's throwing the ball 2.5 seconds. So getting rid of the ball. He's completing 64% of his passes for 65% of the yardage that he's gained, 100% of his touchdown passes, 61.5% of hhis first downs. So, Jeff, what that tells me is holding on to the ball and trying to make a big play ain't working right now.
Oh, by no means, and then most of the time he's running for his life. And look, everybody would get upset if he was throwing the ball away. Why is he throwing it away? Try to make something happen. You can't have it both ways. But to Deshaun's credit, we did hear him talk about this on his own podcast in the offseason. What did he say? Things of, I know I'm a notorious slow starter. I know sometimes I have, the issue of holding the ball too long. So you can see that obviously what he knows about himself, he's certainly trying to work on a little bit. And he also knows, what his weaknesses are certainly do not correlate to any strength for this team whatsoever. Play within structure, play within phase. And look, a lot of that does come down to offensive line play because to get rid of the ball within 2.5 seconds means your offensive line had to basically get their initial, jab in, hands, hand placement in, to keep the pressure, just no free rushers, and he should be able to do what he wants. But, look, you've got to be able to be consistent in this league. If you are not, you'll get eaten alive. And when you try to, go rogue, play backyard football, it does not work in the NFL. And that's what everybody, I think, is trying to get away from. Look, a better running game, a more consistent offensive line, all these things would help. But here we are going into week 4. Not only do we don't know what offensive linemen are in and out for Sunday, we don't even know what offensive linemen, if they are available, are going to play where. That is a big issue for a team that relied on top 5 offensive line play for the first 3 years of this Stefanski and Barry regime.
So here's the $1 million question. How do you get the run game going? And are you surprised at how Foreman has been used? I mean, it's very disjointed. I mean, you put him in, he runs the ball. It's a real nice compliment. And on the bookends, the games were at home, he hadn't played much.
I go right away and I look at yards per carry. And look, Kareem Hunt wasn't doing much for this team last year, scored a bunch of touchdowns, but he wasn't running for a large yards per carry. Either is Dante Foreman. I think the other thing is when they're putting in Dante Foreman, is he truly a true running back, or are they just trying to, pound out and get some yardage? Because if he's going out there and there's no threat of throwing the ball whatsoever, I don't know how much it's going to help. At least with Jerome Ford, we know he is a presence as far as a runner and a receiver, which certainly helps with the RPO game, where you started to see the offense look better last week. Is this, just treading water? Because hopefully maybe you're going to get some great news after you finish the game Sunday against the Raiders. I think everybody would like to hear that. It's not only that we don't hear about Nick Chubb and whether or not there's going to be a finality to this after this weekend. Also, we don't hear anything about Naheem Hines. And Naheem Hines is supposed to be a guy that, operates, accelerates, running flat routes, as a back out, a thing that this Browns team can really use a consistent presence in that level right now. So I don't know so much if it's, trying to get this running game going better, or you're hoping that maybe you're going to get some better talent into that running back room, which could be as soon as after Sunday.
Would you go big? I mean, would you try? I know you're down lineman, but
That's the question. But how can you? I mean, even if you don't have David Njoku, because there were times where they're using Zach Zinter and they use James Hudson as tight ends and that type of nature. But do you have that many guys that you can trust to go out there and do it? The Raiders are getting gashed in the run game right now. So this is it could be a game where you just get right because you're getting an opponent who's struggling themselves and stopping the run. So it's one of those things. It's it's a negative for both. It's a negative for Las Vegas in stopping the run. It's a negative for the Browns in running the ball. Who's going to basically jump that negative? Who's going to correct that negative this week? Don't really know. So maybe yes, it's possible that trying some big. But just try some different approaches, and no design runs with Deshaun. Well, if we're doing these rollouts, there's designed runs within rollouts, and that's something that you want to be a part of the offense. And, I get it. Deshaun doesn't want to compare himself to Lamar's of the world, and nobody does at the quarterback position. But he does have pretty good legs, and they were on display Sunday against the New York Giants. And they were on display at times, as far as a quarterback in the pocket against the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's nothing that's off the table right now. This team absolutely has to get to 1-2, because if you're sitting at 1-3 and you got 2 more road games coming after that, a jump start Washington team that's starting to feel their oats probably a little earlier than I think people thought they were going to. And the Eagles are just one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. The Browns absolutely desperately need this one. And again, there are no bets off. Whatever you got to do to get this victory.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Another side of the break. Back to the voicemail of truth and reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of truth and reason.
Hey, you guys. This is about the quarterback. We over here questioning, is he not Houston Deshaun Watson? We saw that versus Jacksonville. We see that in plays here and there, including the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever you want to say, that it's still in him. Like, isn't he known for his ability to escape sacks and complete a pass? I mean, I watched highlights in Houston and the Jaguars game. We've seen old glimpses of the old Deshaun Watson. Maybe he's just not consistent. That's probably what we're looking for consistently. But as far as his athleticism, it's still there. He just got to be consistent. Personally, I mean, I feel like we just have to see Deshaun be consistent. That's all. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, yes, he needs to be more consistent, but we're getting too many negative plays, and it just doesn't seem like he's processing it as quickly as I'm used to seeing him. Like, I paid a lot of attention to when he was in Houston. He's not processing it as quickly as he did.
There's no question to that. I think it's coming a little slower. And, and to, the caller who left the message, there's times where it just seems like this entire offense, like it goes in a park with the emergency brake pulled on, and it's for like a quarter or even longer. And then, you saw against the Giants, they started to pick it up in the second half, started to play a little bit more consistent. There's something, and Dave, I know we talked about this, over the years, and I've heard other people kind of bring this up is, with all that Deshaun went through, look, at the end of the day, he's back playing the game he loves, all of that, making great money. But, he still knows that he's a very, very disliked individual. And that's just never going to change. And, what does that do to somebody's psyche? And it's got to make it really, really, difficult, for some people. I don't know how you truly block that out, knowing that if there's some people you are just public enemy number one, you're always going to be that way. You will always be that way. And, the one thing is I think, at times where you see Deshaun in the pocket and juking and jiving, and the fact that he won't throw a ball away is, he doesn't want to give up any play. Could this be the play, where I bring it all back and this offense gets right? And sometimes you're just trying to do too much. And, for him, it's just got to be consistent. It's got to be. And I've said, we said a couple times over the last couple of weeks, high completion percentage, no turnovers, the stats will come. But if you stick with those two simple statistics of a high completion percentage and low turnovers, everything else should fall in line in the NFL. It really, really should. And I know it almost seems a cop out. You're talking about it and what he makes and this, that, and the other thing. And we really, honestly, should also probably stop talking about the quarterback that he was in Houston, because we haven't seen it. And this is now in his third season here. Granted, that is probably not the bar anymore. The bar should just be a guy that can guide a team to a winning season. And, we'll find out, over this next 3 weeks, because, it's 3 weeks. You're already 1-2 in your division. Luckily, there's an 0-3 team. There's another 1-2 team. And I don't know how legit we think Pittsburgh is at 3-0. But, this is going to be very, very crucial. And this could be pretty much defining probably for 2024, and maybe defining as far as number 4 being the quarterback, for the Cleveland Browns, in years to come, or possibly not in years to come.
So one thing we know, or we expect, Raiders are probably going to blitz like crazy because the Giants did and were successful. What do you do? How do you beat that? What is this? What do you have that can make them stop or make them pay?
If you have David Njoku, that would be key. Because you remember, a lot of times this was happening last year, and they would run those center screens to David Njoku where he would just leak out over basically the center gap. You have Jerome Ford, who is a good receiver. These outside receivers, I don't think, you have Judy, Cooper, Moore, certainly Tillman. I don't think all 4 of these guys and Deshaun Watson are on the page as far as what this offense is and what it isn't. Even like I know Tillman caught a lot of flack, for that ball he didn't catch. It was slightly tipped before it got there. Still should have caught it. But you talk about your 6'3", 220-pound receiver, on your short, quick slant with the game on the line. That should not be a play that is ran to Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman should be a guy that's running deep vertical routes because he is most likely bigger than any defensive back on the opposing team. So you've got to start using your guys and using your guys correctly as far as what they can do well and what they cannot do well. And until they work all this out, and hopefully it's getting worked out quickly, and hopefully it's getting worked out immediately ahead of the trip out tomorrow to Vegas to play the Raiders, because it's just not going well. Everything looks forced. And, back to the, original guy that left the message. Yeah. I mean, this looks like a team that is, probably in late August, not a team that is in late September rounding into October. This offense has a lot of issues and it needs to get right. Otherwise, it's only going to get uglier. And if it doesn't get right, that's when you start contemplating change. So
key matchups. What do the Browns need to do to win? Who do they really need to step up? And as you said, I agree wholeheartedly. 1-3, and you're looking now at Washington and at Philadelphia. That sounds like a disaster.
Well, I think the first thing is a couple of years ago, the Browns went down to Miami. I believe that was still Jacoby Brissett playing quarterback for them. Christian Wilkins absolutely destroyed them that day. And this was a huge addition for the Las Vegas Raiders because Max Crosby in Las Vegas, it had been a lot like Myles Garrett in his early years in Cleveland, where it was one guy in the defensive line without any legitimate help around him. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, they're both going to come into this game dinged up. Max has got an ankle. We know, Myles has got things going on. But Dexter Lawrence killed this team last Sunday. Absolutely destroyed them. Wyatt Teller, Posick, Joel Bitonio, you name it. And Dexter Lawrence kind of ate their lunch for them. Christian Wilkins may not be as big, could possibly be a step quicker, which is probably scary. You're going to have to take this away, and it's going to start with the offensive line. And again, it is not a good situation to be in when you, A, don't know who's going to play, and B, of the guys you have who are going to play, you don't necessarily know what positions they are going to play. Find the best 5 you have for Sunday. If Joel Bitonio's got to play left tackle, that's fine. I think the emergency offensive line Sunday looked better than the offensive line that started the game. And if that's the case, then that's the offensive line, and that's the offensive line going forward unless injury dictates otherwise, because you got to get some harmony going there. You can't keep rotating guys in, rotating guys out. So you might have a new left tackle this week. You might have a new starting left guard this week. You might have a new starting center this week. You might also have a new starting right guard, which we're definitely going to have. And if that unit goes out there and can take away Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, or at least control them and allow Deshaun Watson to get things done that he needs to get done, then that is your offensive line going forward. You can't go by, oh, well, this week we have so-and-so, so we're going to plug him in. There is no harmony within this offensive line. And that was the key for this team in the beginning years of the Stefanski regime is you looked out there each and every week. We knew who the starters were. Granted, health was a lot more on their side in those days, but you knew who the left tackle was, the left guard was, the center was, the right guard and the right tackle was. There was no question about it. And right now, that is probably one of the biggest things that's holding this offense back.
Yeah, they got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out quickly. Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Hopefully, get a good one here on Sunday.
Yeah, they need one. We need to be 2-2. Who thought we'd be saying that? Jeff Lloyd, appreciate it. As always, great stuff. Make sure you check him out, Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Always really good Browns content and analysis. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.